Welcome you back to Nagano, Japan. The men will skate for the title a little bit later on, but up next, the pairs skate for gold here at the World Figure Skating Championships presented by Expedia.com. Well, unless you actually left the galaxy last month, you're no doubt aware of the judging controversy surrounding the pairs competition in Salt Lake City. After the Russians, Berezhnaya and Sikharidlidze, originally won the event, a second gold medal was awarded to Salé and Peltier of Canada because of improprieties in the judging process. Neither of the gold medal teams, by the way, is competing here in Nagano. It was a 5-4 split that night, as close as it gets on the panel. The vote mostly broke down along former party lines, with former Eastern Bloc judges picking the Russians, the Western judges choosing the Canadians. Marie Ren-Lagunia's decision, of course, was the one aberration. If you remove the tainted vote of the French judge, it was a tie, with 4 judges voting for each team. Tonight, for the first time, you'll hear from 5 of those 8 judges who agreed to speak to us as soon as the Olympic Games were concluded. They speak out about how they arrived at their decisions on the most controversial night in figure skating history.
The Russians, in my opinion, had small mistakes. The Canadians had not. So therefore, I decided with 1/10 of a mark for the Canadian in the first mark.
Berezhnaya and Sikharidlidze had a small mistake in the jump sequence. But when you look at the other elements, the strength of all the other elements, the connecting steps in between, the interesting positions, their changes of speed, all this gives them a slight advantage.
When the Canadians skated, I thought their performance was more synchronized, better unison, their interplay, their mood. They had unison of body, mind, spirit, and I really thought it was perfect.
Canadian pairs had no any new original movements, elements. It was program 1999. It's 3 years ago program. I prefer Berezhnaya and Sikharidlidze. The program style, romantic style, used very good entire body to develop the artistic impression.
In the presentation, I think it's almost same, but the Canadian pairs more emotional program. If they are last skater, I will give 6.0 in the presentation.
These 5 judges have gone on the record about what happened that night. But what about the French judge? Well, after the competition at the judges' hotel, she tearfully told bystanders that she had cast her vote under pressure. At the judges' meeting the next morning, she confessed again in front of her peers.
The French judge broke down into tears and started crying and saying, "You don't understand what pressure I'm under."
She said she was under pressure and that it was not her own opinion. And I think it has to be taken serious, yes.
The French judge initially claimed that her own federation pressured her to cast her vote for the Russian pair. But recently, she held a press conference and changed her story. She now claims she voted her conscience, but was later approached by Canadian supporters who intimidated her into making up her original story.
As soon as I had put down my pen, I started to suffer from a series of attacks, physical, verbal, and the worst, moral. I was trapped, and people behaved toward me in a manner worthy of a police dictatorship. This led me to say what these people wanted me to say. So, because of my emotional state, I couldn't take it anymore. I broke down.
The ISU will decide Lagunia's fate at a hearing on April 29th and 30th. But no matter what happens at that hearing, the case has prompted many people to propose reforms to the judging system, including ISU President Ottavio Cinquanta. Cinquanta says that his new scoring system would reduce the potential for cheating. His system would create a degree of difficulty for each skater's program, similar to systems used in diving and gymnastics. Under his plan, 14 judges would mark each event, but only 7 randomly selected judges' scores would count. But to prevent anyone from knowing which 7 were voting, individual marks would no longer be displayed. A lump sum score would appear on the scoreboard. Judges could vote without anyone in the building knowing how they had voted.
How does this help you? It seems to me that it's important to say who is the judge and what did they vote and how did they vote. Openness is the issue, not hiding everything.
But Cinquanta argues that the new system has other safeguards built in.
This system that is based on a random, where among a number of 14 judges, all the 14 will judge, but only 7 will count. This would protect, let's say, prevent considerably possible block judging.
While Cinquanta focuses on the scoring system, others say that the real problem is not the scoring system at all, but the fact that countries have too much power over their own judges.
I think as long as the federations or the countries are hiring or firing the judges, then the judges are going to do right by the country first. So the judges are under an enormous amount of pressure from their federations. I think the number one thing that the ISU has to do is they have to separate the judges from the federations.
There is at least one basic reform that many people want to see happen: a zero-tolerance policy for judges who have been caught cheating.
When judges have been convicted for cheating, and it's been clear-cut, as it was in 1999 when Babenko was caught tapping his foot, the signal and placements, to the Ukrainian judge, 5 feet away from him, he should be suspended forever. Have you ever heard of a bank, for example, taking back someone who they had in their accounting department who embezzled money? They may have served their sentence. Let them go find a job someplace else.
When a judge is found guilty of an impropriety, are you personally in favor of a lifetime ban, as opposed to what happens now, which in some cases is just a short-term suspension?
Well, in the case of a grave offense to the rules, yes, I am personally in favor of life ban, but this is a personal opinion. In this case, we need to have a model, let's say, to prevent and to teach and to tell people that they have to behave.
Making any changes at all will not be easy. 2/3 of the ISU's 56-member nations must approve any reform. But if there has ever been a moment when things could change, it's now, for the credibility of the sport is on the line. Well, a couple of points to make here. First of all, the French judge, Marie-Reine Lagunier, has filed a formal complaint against 2 ISU officials citing undue influence. Also, earlier this week, I was told by the president of the ISU, Ottavio Cinquanta, that as soon as the hearing is concluded at the end of April, he will release the results of that hearing and the investigation to the public, so we will all know right away when action will be taken. And Dick, I want to ask you, what's your take on this entire situation?
Well, there are many judges who are really hard-working, and they're honest and they're experienced, and they've given years of yeoman service. I mean, they are to be honored. Unfortunately, it's the bad reputation of a few judges and their federations that tarnishes the entire sport. The International Skating Union should be ruthless in eliminating those convicted of this misconduct. I mean, Tanya Harding was banned for life just for knowing about a conspiracy to whack Nancy on the knee. Now, in skating, convicted judges continue to judge. Alfred Koritek, one of those suspended in the now infamous tap dancing scandal, is back judging here. Not for the Ukraine this time, but now for Israel. So what gives? I mean, if a country's judges continue to cheat, the federation should be banned, as happened in 1978 when the Russian Federation was barred for a year from sending any judges to any competition. There should be much greater openness in this sport, not secrecy. Judges are not allowed to talk, country affiliations are hidden, and there are limited press conferences. I fear that Madame Lagana will be a scapegoat, a tip of the iceberg that just may not melt away.